good does it get, SK?
Why not us, Troy?
Today, live from the Pinecrest Inn, it's the Smylie Show. So long, everybody.
This is the Smylie Show.
Welcome back to the Smylie Show, where I am on a rooftop somewhere in Manhattan, Smylie, and for a change, this is one of my most ill-fated adventures in trying to find a place to record the podcast. I thought we had something really good going here, and instead I've been holding up my laptop screen, blowing in the wind, and attempting to mute when I hear sirens going by. But we're here. You're back at home after covering the Cadillac Championship, and I'm getting tuned up for media day at Shinnecock Hills tomorrow. So we're going to make it work.
I mean, rooftop in Manhattan sounds like a great time, you know?
In theory.
But also from a podcast perspective, you know, it kind of feels like you're fighting for your life out at sea on a sailboat here. You just need to anchor down for us here for this podcast.
You know, we're going to get to an interview with Brody Miller of The Athletic later in the show, kind of a deep dive on his reporting on LIV, and he paid me a high compliment in that record of I'm not a TrackMan podcaster. I'm a feel podcaster. That's one that I relish that one. That one meant a lot to me. But yeah, buddy, yeah. we got to just kind of start a little bit with, you know, shout out to the good people at Srixon in Cleveland that support the show, because I feel like my brother and I should be going around in button downs and ties with like little name tags on, just spreading the gospel about full bounce lob wedges. I will find any excuse to use that Cleveland RTZ anywhere around the green. It's my favorite thing of all time, and I'm feeling good about Shinnecock Hills tomorrow. I'm really feeling like some confidence, and I don't know what I'm going to shoot, how I'm going to play. We're going to break it down a little film room video after, but I'm feeling good heading into the day tomorrow.
Dude, I'm just already seeing pictures and videos of the U.S. Open at Shinny, man. And I'm not to get ahead of ourselves, because we got a great record coming up this week with Keegan Bradley looking at hole by hole at Aronimink PGA Championship. Man, what a unbelievable walk that was with Keegan, similar to what we did with Bone. So hopefully this will be a mainstay on the show to get everybody kind of excited about the future major championships to come. But yeah, I can't wait to hear about how your round goes at Shinny. I'm looking forward to getting up there myself. But yeah, we got some golf to cover from this week.
We have some golf to cover this week. We have Cam Young winning for the second time this season, the Players Championship and a signature event. And going back to last August, that's 3 wins. I believe the stat was, I don't know how many starts was were on the PGA Tour since he was a rookie where he didn't have a win, but he's won 3 of his last 14 starts, I believe. I have that stat correct.
Wow.
So just incredible, you know, for a guy that we talked a long while about, you know, when's he going to get done? You know, he's had that breakthrough and he's not looking back. And we can unpack a little bit just this sort of Mount Rushmore we have in pro golf right now of Scotty, Rory, Cam Young, and Matt Fitzpatrick, of just how well this group's playing right now. But maybe we start with, I mean, you're in the booth for Golf Channel this week covering the Cadillac Championship at Doral, back at the Blue Monster. Just your thoughts on how the course played and the degree of difficulty. And you know, we saw Cam Young jump out to that early lead and never give it back on a day where there wasn't a ton of wind when he played in the morning. What were your thoughts on just on the course itself and the event itself and its return to that venue?
I like Doral. I really do. It's a course that I played well on back in 10 years ago, finishing 8th. Getting back out there, I felt like I would have played well again. It's just one of those golf courses that just seems to fit my eye. Obviously fit Cam Young's eye, shooting 19 under. I definitely didn't see that number out there. I think in years past, in 14, 15, and 16, somewhere between 4 under and 12 under was winning. I think Patrick Reed 1 year at 4 under. You had Adam Scott winning at 12 under 1 year. 8 under was another champion. And so when I think about Doral and this past week on what worked and what didn't, I would say just the date of like when this tournament is played. When this tournament is in late April, early May, like it was this week, what did we struggle with? I think there was lack of wind in the morning, a little bit warmer, and you just didn't quite have the fanfare. I think this is, you know, early May, late April, based on all the people that I talked to down in Miami, had said that's kind of beginning of summer, where a lot of people that live down in Miami head back up to the, you know, wherever they live in the north, or if it's their summer place, they're out of there. And so, especially with F1 being the exact same weekend, which I'm not sure if that was part of the whole deal. being the same week and having competing things in a big city, which is something we've kind of talked a little bit about with these big markets and wanting to go to, but the place kind of lacked juice. There's no doubt about it. The fanfare really was light out there at Doral this week. But it doesn't take away from Cam Young's performance. What he was able to do to get to 19 under it's just silly. But I'll say that the golf course played pretty difficult every single afternoon on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Sunday was the easiest it played with not a ton of wind. So you kind of got to see how it played in the afternoon, but pretty much Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. Actually, Saturday morning had some wind, but there were some scoreable conditions out there. And so I just kind of look at maybe the date in the calendar when it used to be played. It used to start out the Florida Swing. This was the first event in March. And so you get more wind. I think you probably get a little bit more in the dormancy, potentially. Not that you'd say that Miami has much dormancy at all, but I think you would see it a little bit firmer and faster just because of all the wind that would be around.
Yeah, Smylie, there's a lot to unpack here in terms of both this event itself, the venue, how did it play, conditions, time of year, but also just the profile of what does the tour want to do with these signature events going forward. We heard Ryan Rolap talk a little bit about this in Ponte Vedra around the Players Championship, and could we see fields expand for these events to 100, 120 players? Also, just how many events are going to be on the schedule? Could this be one of 12 events that are not majors and playoff events in the Ryder President's Cup? And so if you're looking at some South Florida events, do you have both a Cognizant Classic, a PGA National, and a Cadillac Championship at the Blue Monster on the schedule at the same time? I'm not sure. I do think, to your point, if you're going to try to capitalize on the time of year that makes the most sense, when people are around, you're going to get those crowds. It would make sense for this event to be in that Florida Swing. And I think there's also just the question of spacing these things out, of you had Rory skip this week, had Rory skip Heritage. Scotty's not going to play in the Truist next week. We've talked about that before, of how does it all land on the calendar. But it's going to be interesting.
When you're asking for more, right?
When you ask for, and what did you think? Because this scoreboard, obviously it's amazing to see Cam take this thing wire to wire and play the way he did, but it reminded me of a few years back at a limited field no-cut signature event at Quail Hollow, where Rory kind of jumped out to a big lead and Xander was his closest chaser, but it was a distant finish. And I remember at the time we talked about this is kind of the problem you have when you only have 80 guys in the field, and there are just less players in the mix, less chasers to make this thing interesting. So how do you reflect on that as we have just two more signature events on the calendar this year? We have the Truist, of course, this next week, and the Travelers, and then we're looking at potentially a different looking slate of signature events in terms of field composition and timing in 2027.
Well, I think 120 was always the best number of when it comes to just competitors playing in these big events. It flowed the best as a player, and you got enough guys in to where you would have a couple more guys that would have an opportunity to chase. But with the way that Cam Young and Scotty and these guys are playing, it would have been tough, of course, to say that at any of the extra 40 players that you could have added would have potentially taken down Cameron Young this week. Nobody was beating Cam Young this week, and that's just the bottom line. But I think where you could point to the bigger issue is that you need all the guys to play that are at the top. The Rory McIlroys, the Xander Schauffele, Matt Fitzpatrick, Robert McIntyre. The list kind of goes on of players who were not there. Now, those guys could have made a difference. Now, would they have beaten Cam again? No, nobody was beating Cam. But that's kind of where my head's at there. And just to kind of dive into Cam Young a little bit and why he was so good this week. So 19 under par is ridiculous. This golf course is 7,700 yards, the second longest on the PGA Tour. And with water that's in play on 13 of the 18 holes. And I'm looking at his stats, and of course, Cameron Young has so many weapons. He's an elite driver of the golf ball, hits it long and straight, and his iron game has improved tremendously since making the golf ball change at Wyndham this past year, where he went on to win that first PGA Tour event. And the putter, this is something that we talked about with him on the podcast. He's tremendously improved in that statistic, but just again, the stats this week. I'm blown away by some of these numbers.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Manager, hitting coach, bench coach, assistant hitting coach, third base coach, hitting strategy, and game planner here. It's almost like a line change in hockey, Craig.
Some of these questions that have to be asked, Donnie, would be, what did you think a month ago, Donnie, right? Like right before the season started, did you think that these coaches were the answer to your season? Because if not, why did you wait all off season to make a change like that?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Teams are going to be tanking. Now, instead of 14 tanking, 18 will be tanking. You know what solves this show? Keep it at 18 teams. All 18. One ping pong ball. No more, no less. Don't care about the record. You know what that solves, Joe? Tanking. They won't tank anymore. There's no incentive to tank. This gives you incentive to tank. You idiot.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Number one, who asked for this? Nobody, but nobody asked for a bump up in the number of teams in both the men and the women's basketball tournament from 68, including the 4 play-in teams, to 76. By the way, it looks like it is a near-done deal. ESPN and ABC News reported this morning that's very close to being done. It could be announced by the end of this week.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
To have more of those putts outside of 10 feet. So you'd love to make a couple a day if possible. Then you'd shoot a low score. But a lot of these guys weren't making many putts outside of 10 feet. But Cam Young, Charlie, I'll give you here the stats. From 10 to 15 feet this week, he was 5 of 9. From 15 to 20 feet, he was also 5 of 9. So this guy was making more than 50% of the putts in that 10 to 20 feet range. That is how not only do you win golf tournaments, that's how you blow fields away. When you talk about Cam Young's elite ball striking statistics paired with that putter, and then you throw in a mental game now that he's been able to work very hard on with Dr. Brett McCabe, who's been on this podcast. And the one thing that he talked about, Charlie, that just kind of sticks with me is that Cam Young can show up one day to the next and feel like he's not searching and not feeling like he has to have his best stuff to win. He thinks he can just show up and just take one shot at a time and just be able to deal with what comes his way and not overthink things and not be too hard on himself, which I think was a thing that he struggled with the most. He was too hard on himself. It's a big reason why he was never able to get across the line in the winning circle. And then you pair in now a putter that is just an absolute weapon.
Isn't it interesting to look at both Cam Young and Matt Fitzpatrick and where they were really, like, let's go back just to the beginning or this time last year. I know this is where kind of Matt Fitzpatrick's game sort of picked up, but, you know, Matt Fitzpatrick looks kind of lost. He's, you know, we talked to Mark Blackburn about how he'd gone on that speed chase, allowed him to hit that big bomb draw driver out the tee, but it started to bleed into his approach shots and his irons, and he wasn't playing very good golf. And so he had to kind of retool and change some things around. Cam at that point in time had not won a PGA Tour event. And just the way both of those guys go about getting it done. You mentioned, of course, the stuff with Cam and the putting and really, you know, working on the minutia of the setup and things like that, and paired with this sort of mental approach that we've seen just be so great under pressure. And then also talking about a guy, Matt Fitzpatrick, that is just so detail-oriented, does all this work with Mark Blackburn. Also, you talked about this amazing, you know, competitor, like his mindset, the way he has that sort of Ryder Cup medal and all these sort of pressure situations. Those two guys, in terms of storylines in the PGA Tour event, I just think, and I can't wait till we get into major season and see how those guys perform, because I think they're both such cool examples of the way you can go from we're riding this guy, if we're not even talking about him as a factor in a lot of events, to like these two guys, I might take him in a best ball match right now against Scotty and Rory, the way they're playing, the form there, and it's amazing.
Shoot, I mean, Cam Young was my pick, obviously, to win the Masters. Fitzpatrick was the guy I was deciding between with him. And like Cam Young, Ludwig Oberg, and Matt Fitzpatrick have been the three best players outside of Scotty and Rory this year. And you could have seen it coming, coming out of that Ryder Cup where Cam Young was undoubtedly the best United States player. Matt Fitzpatrick, I think, was the biggest surprise of a player who had not played well in the Ryder Cups go out and be a huge asset for Luke Donald and perform very well. And then you go back, like you said, a year ago, and you look at their official world golf rankings. A year ago is actually a good time to go back and look because it's the highest their world ranking was. I mean, Fitzpatrick, he was before the PGA Championship at the Truist was 85th in the world. Cam Young, right at the PGA Championship, was around 67th in the world. Two guys that weren't exempt into any majors heading into the following season. What does Matt Fitzpatrick do? Well, he goes out, almost has a chance to win at the PGA Championship at Quail, kind of out of nowhere. It's like, oh, well, I guess Fitzy's back. And then he went on to reel however many top 10s, 15 top 10s or so since, and multiple wins. And then Cam Young, of course, getting that win at the Wyndham, which we always said, if he can just win one, the floodgates could open for this guy. And I think with what we saw early in his career and what he was potentially capable of not only winning on the PGA Tour, but becoming an elite player, but then also getting in a signature event model like this and dominate the best players in the world. And not many players can do this. It's very, very few that aren't Scotty and Rory that can go show up at an event like this and not only win, but win going away.
You teased a little bit this Aronimink preview we did with Keegan Bradley dropping in a couple days here. So excited for this. We as you all know, if you follow the channel, we did this with Bones Mackay. We did it with a yardage book, like the actual yardage book the players and caddies would use at Augusta National, whereas we used some pretty cool flyovers provided to us by the PGA of America for this preview of Aronimink. So first of all, stay tuned for that. You're going to enjoy it. Second of all, if you're looking at that group of four and the way Keegan walked you through Aronimink and the way his practice round went, which sort of player profile amongst that group before you think it favors the most, or are there certain strengths or weaknesses that Aronimink might cater to as we're trying to pick a favorite out of those four guys?
Well, I think it caters to guys that can bomb it and that are good wedge players. It's going to be the story for the week. I really do think that all of those guys are going to be up there. You would have to point to a couple things that I would see that Cam Young and Rory McIlroy might struggle with, or if it's a wet week, and struggling with back hole locations and controlling their golf ball and having to worry about spin. I think both of those guys have struggled with that in their career with their wedge game, where I think Fitzpatrick would be a little bit more suited to be able to handle that. I think Ludwig Oberg has maybe struggled with that at times throughout his career, getting to some back hole locations, but he's definitely, I would say, a little bit better than the other two at that. But it's going to be interesting. I think the weather is going to dictate that event so much. If it's firm, then Cam Young and all of a sudden Rory McIlroy not quite as concerned about the back hole locations. And once you watch that whole preview and you kind of get a feel for this golf course, you'll start to see that bombers are suited for this place, especially if you're not getting a ton of rough with some short holes. It's going to be a pitch and putt, if you will, on that front side, and then you start to get some holes on the backside that are going to be, you're going to have to some long irons, but for the most part, it's how many birdies can you make on that front nine is what it really feels like to me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. We got to look at that weather report for the Philadelphia area, because last time it was a wet, rain soaked week for the BMW Championship.
Hold on. Let's do a live little weather report.
Let's do a live. You are looking live at Smylie's weather app as we check in on the Philadelphia area. Because the last time it was played here, of course Keegan Bradley won. It was a 20 under playoff. He and Justin Rose went to a playoff, and it was just really soft. And then Keegan, of course, as you'll hear in this preview, was talking about they got it pretty firm already, and that's coming out of the Northeast where it hadn't been all that warm. It certainly isn't super warm in April.
pretty adamant that they're going to play Kirk Cousins all of the season if they can.
It's not like Mendoza's coming in as some quarterback that, he hasn't played much and he needs some time. Like, he's as ready as he's going to be, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to change? It's almost like Bo Nix or something. Like, nothing was going to change. Like, the guy's played 1 million games already. He is who he is.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
If you're a loyal PGA Tour player, you should be sending a thank you card to every single guy who jumped ship. Because without LIV Golf breathing down their necks, the PGA Tour would still be handing out winners' checks for barely $1 million a tournament. LIV forced the establishment to finally empty their pockets and actually pay their talent.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
This isn't the best Jason Tatum series we have ever seen. It is a series that I think Boston fans will remember forever. He will remember forever because, Coach, he's really not supposed to be out there. You know what I mean? Like, this was never supposed to be a thing.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
We got a log jam up top, Joe, which basically means these are the teams we expect to make the college football playoff.
If I like, let's say, Ohio State to run it back, well, then I already know what, not only am I betting them for a flyer, I'm also betting the conference to win the championship also. So there's a lot of way to correlate these future bets in college.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
And played some tremendous golf the rest of the way. And also shout out to the golf gods. I think we need to shout out the golf gods here.
Shout them out.
And shout out to the gentlemen of the game of golf. We have to give a big tip of the cap to Cam Young. I think what happened on the second hole yesterday where his golf ball rolled over a fraction, this is probably something we should have touched on at the beginning, and just how his mental game has changed to be able to handle a situation like that and be like, oh gosh, your head could start spinning and you could start to think like, man, this isn't going to be my day. I already got a golf ball moving. And by the way, I asked the PGA Tour rules staff, like, hey, did y'all see the golf ball move on your video review? They said no. Like they weren't able to conclusively see it. So it is just what Cam Young's eyes saw, and having to say, you know what, I have to accept this one shot penalty, even though he didn't touch the ball. Right? It's just how the nature of the game of respecting not only the game, but also the field in this, and just being able to live with yourself and saying, you know what, what's going to happen is going to happen, but I got to take this penalty and just be able to reset and regroup. And what did he do? He striped an 8-iron in there, made the putt for I guess it feels like a 3-net 4.
Yeah, it's like one of those events where you're not
giving a shot
the
back.
lowest man. Yeah, you got to give one back. A little 34 for him there, but that's
he could have given a shot a day and still won the golf tournament.
Yeah, I know. I think it just, to kind of put a bow on that, it goes back to exactly what you're saying with the work he's done on his mental game, and I know that it probably has to be difficult. You would know better having played at the highest professional level, but if you're committed to a process on the mental side where the line is like, hey, you just got to trust in this, you got to stick to this, and then week after week after week, you aren't getting the results you want, I'm sure that comes with a little bit of impatience. Like, when is this going to kind of finally come through for me? I've been dedicated to this process. I've been working hard on, whether it's the full swing, the mechanics of the putting, whatever it is, but I'm not getting the result I feel like I deserve. I can see how frustration would creep in. But for him, like, he stuck to that thing, and then here we are, 3 wins and 14 starts later, an incredible performance at the Ryder Cup, and he's one of the best 3 or 4 players in the world heading into major season. So I think it's amazing stuff. And yeah, just on Adam as well, I believe Adam was one of 3 players last time at Aronimink, again, different conditions, but who tied the course record that week. So maybe Aronimink's a good spot for Adam Scott. We will see.
My favorite tweet that I saw yesterday was Chris Powers. He put out a good one. It said, man, it's going to be such a tough beat for Cam Young's over betters of 3.5 major championships won this year. You know, looking back at the Masters, not getting that one done, knowing that he's going to win the next 3 majors. I was like, that's a good tweet. That's
Great
a good tweet.
Great tweet. Well, Smylie, we're going to kick it over to that interview now with Brody Miller. I'm going to attempt to get off this rooftop. The lighting's blown out. The wind is about to kind of knock my laptop off. I can't believe.
I think we're
going
to retire this rooftop. I think
this is the last. This is the last time I ever record on a rooftop in Manhattan. So hope you all enjoyed it, and let's get right to our conversation with Brody Miller of The Athletic.
All right, guys, happy to be welcomed in by Brody Miller from The Athletic. But for those of you that are maybe not familiar with Brody's work, trust me, I am, because I've known Brody for a very, very long time as he covered LSU sports back in the day. And Brody, you and I were just talking about before we came on that I just used to send a couple DMs here and there about, hey, are we getting this recruit? Why have we not fired this guy? Give me a little bit of scoop. I mean, can we talk about the days on the beat at LSU here before we get started on this whole golf crazy world?
Absolutely. First off, thanks for having me, guys. But yeah, because I mean, this was like a lot of this was still when you were in like the peak of your playing, if I recall. Like it wasn't like, which isn't like weird or anything, but it's just even funnier because I'm like a 25-year-old LSU football reporter, and I'm just like DM from Smylie Kaufman, like, did we get the quarterback? And I'm just like, this is cool, this is great. Smylie knows ball, you know, because you get, I mean, you guys probably all know, like when you're in media, you get a lot of random DMs from people that are just like they want to know what's going on, and you quickly differentiate the ball knowers and the non-ball knowers. Smylie was a ball knower, at least from what I can tell. Yeah.
Hey, so let's get a quick Baton Rouge. Give me your favorite meals from breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Let's go.
So start the day, middle of the day, end the day, and maybe where are you grabbing a cocktail at the end of the evening?
No, that's easy. Okay. So like one of my favorites in Elizabeth's Close downtown, but I mean, like, is it wrong to say Louis is my favorite breakfast? Like,
no, it's
24
not.
hours.
That's
yeah,
mine.
I mean, yeah, you were probably living there in your college years. Like, it was always a little weird as like the older post college guy to hang out there much, but like Louis slaps. Louis, okay.
Charlie, picture Louis is it used to be a hole in the wall before they changed buildings, and just think about like all the grease from the hash browns also was like being mixed in and like what made your pancakes, right? Like it was the bacon grease, everything was just all jumbled up into a pot, man. And their pancakes and their omelets were all time.
to potentially bring together both leagues, whatever that looked like. Where is that moment in time for you? And then how does it get from there to where we are now, to where Yasser is off the board, the funding's pulled? It feels like such an interesting journey to trace, where they were so close to being a real legitimate power player in the world of golf.
It's a great question, and it's a good way to think of it, because we can have fun with that, right? Because you could say it's pre-framework agreement or post right after the framework agreement, where it's like the height of the war is at its highest. Lawsuits are terrifying everybody involved. That's probably the real answer. But yeah, then you got the John Rahm signing, when it just felt like, oh. But at the same time, I think what you're alluding to which is probably the most interesting, is February of last year, it felt like it was happening. I'll let you behind the scenes here. Going into that second White House meeting, we had pre-written 7 huge stories of how this all came to be, and the deals getting done. We thought it was happening, and a lot of people at the tour thought it was happening. And do you guys even remember those quotes from Jay Monahan at Torrey Pines 2 weeks earlier that were just very much a tone, which I guess I don't know if that's PIF leverage, but the tour thought they had a deal coming. And it just shifted so hard. And I think the great story, Joel Beal wrote a pretty good one that touched on a lot of it. But the great story that's still be written is the true, everything that happened inside that last White House meeting when Yasser, the one where Yasser was there. Because from that moment on, it was just no more talks. It really,
Isn't that
nothing
insane?
else ever happened.
It was just, was just ego get in the way in all this?
It's, again, you might not more than me on some of this, but yeah, I think there was an element of, the tour thought that they were just going to absorb and take them completely on and be a merged tour.
It was going to be PGA Tour LIV, right?
Yeah.
They were
and
just going to
Yasser
umbrella the whole
was just
thing.
What are you talking about? Which, I don't know, can't separate fact from fiction there of whether they were right to think that or whatnot. I know at one point there was a reference to the team concept staying around and Trump being the team can stay, right? And some PGA Tour representatives were just don't think so. And Yasser just kind of shut down from there. It's fascinating to look back on Trump was such a key part of that year and everything going on. And it seemed like a lot of regardless of politics, just kowtowing going on of we'll give you a tournament, but you're going to help this deal get through. And then so swiftly that actually didn't happen. But obviously we still had the Cadillac last week. And I think that's to your question, how it got from there to here is the hardest part to pin down, because I don't think anything drastically changed with how LIV operated, or they were told for a very long time by Yasser, and Yasser got quoted all the time saying, we judge ourselves by success is measured in decades, not years or quarters or anything. And they operated that way. And talking to people when I was down in Mexico City, it's they were still in conversations as of a few months ago of from PIF being you're still going to do LIV Women's, right? That's coming soon, right? It wasn't a sentiment of this is coming. And all of a sudden, and the war, I think we can get into, was maybe a convenient force majeure element to pull out. I don't really have an insight into PIF's thinking deeply, but very, very suddenly it went from Scott O'Neill's doing meetings at Augusta National, thinking everything's great, to, all right, we're not going to lose this money anymore, and you are on your own.
When did you start hearing the whispers about LIV Golf and its potential PIF backing out from a funding standpoint? It was reported by Monday Q that evening, and then it kind of raced around Twitter that whole night. I guess I should say did you hear about it before, and how quickly had you booked a Mexico City flight after that to go figure out, there wasn't many people that hopped on a plane to go try to do their own investigative reporting.
So, yeah, I think, and I'll shout out the teamwork here with Brendan Quinn, who obviously did the epic Smylie story. Who could forget? Yeah. Brendan Quinn, Gabby Herzig, and Adam Crafton over at The Athletic. And I think Sunday night was when we first got a few messages being hey, we're hearing that, well, actually, no, it was from people on LIV staff being executives are planning on trying, are being told their job might not be here, and we got to find other options. So I think Sunday night was when we heard something. Even then, we're all right, I don't know about.
Is that the same night? I'm trying to remember the timeline.
Masters Sunday.
Oh, that was Masters Sunday.
Yes.
Oh,
so
wow.
Which makes it even more fascinating that everything seemed so kosher all week in Augusta, and maybe it was less kosher than I thought, but And then Monday, all of a sudden, it starts picking up a lot of steam. All of a sudden, and that's still kind of happening quietly. I want to say the French tweet was Tuesday, right? I could be wrong, but Monday we start hearing a lot more, and we start moving. Gabby and Brendan and I start hearing more things. Tuesdays when it's like, this might be shutting down tomorrow. Like they might not play Mexico City. It was truly like we are in a mad dash to figure out what's happening here, because this is not going to exist. But at this point, we knew PIF was planning to pull its funding, but so much was still vague. I think it's a good example, a good lesson for all of us of like, really sometimes wait, because we weren't that far away from reporting it's not happening. And I think the positive thing of going to Mexico City, which, like, not to jump ahead, but like, was a lot of what I learned there was like, it was down to the wire. This wasn't like what we were hearing was wrong and thank God we waited, because no, things change in this, right? It's like coaching searches in college football, right? Like, stuff's just changing constantly. And I think from what I understand, according to LIV sources, like, they kind of got the final round of funding for 26, like, down to maybe Wednesday, Tuesday. Like, it was down to the wire, chaotic week of meetings for Scott O'Neill. And so then I think Tuesday night, the Monday Q tweet goes out. So now we're like, oh, we kind of got beat to this, but like, let's just take our time. Like, let's figure it out. And by Wednesday afternoon, it was clear, like, okay, this is going to go on. This is going to exist, but LIV is in massive trouble. But to your question about the flight, I think we knew I might go, but we held because it was such chaos. Love the sirens, Charlie. And
this is
great. This shows how hard you grind. You're a grinder, and you're in. Like,
I've fully embraced
homes.
you. Literally, have two hands on the steering wheel this entire interview.
I've got one hand on the mic, one hand on the laptop. We got a lot of wind going on up here. I feel like there's a little bit of metaphorical happening here. You got the sirens rushing to the impending end potentially of a.
You know what I know for sure right now? You're not a TrackMan golfer. You're not a TrackMan podcaster. You are a guy who can play the conditions. You can fight through it. Yeah.
That's right. I'm a field podcaster.
Butter. Why can't I think of the word?
Yeah.
And then I think we publish our story at 3:00, and then I'm on a 7:00. Like, I book at 3:30 a flight to Mexico City, and I'm just like, and by the way, I've been on the road for 2 weeks, and I'm like, sorry, wife, like, I'm also gonna go for a week, which we all know
be the story, right?
So yeah, then we're at the airport 2 hours later. Yeah, what a week.
So Brody, I think there's two kind of lanes of interest as we're taking this thing forward, right? I think the one of big interest to everyone in the golf world is what happens to these players. If John Rahm is under contract through 2029, what happens there? I think the one that maybe we have to talk about first, and apologies given my current situation, I have the names of the new board members somewhere in a document that will not be able to access now. But there's this structural thing that LIV's trying to do, that Scott O'Neill's trying to do. He's got to scramble to almost the finish line of this year to get funding in 2027. He's got these, Yasser, of course, is off that board, 2 new board members with this sort of consulting background. For those who don't know a ton about those players or what the strategy is going to be, can you help, fans in the golf world understand what do you think LIV's going to attempt to do here from a structural business perspective? And what kind of competition does that look like in 2027? How different do the purses look? How different do contracts look for these guys? I think that's helpful to kind of set the table for what happens to all the big names that could stay or leave.
Yeah, and they've still been so close to the vest on what these references to national opens or who they might partner with to be this global tour. They're still being very close to the vest on that, and I believe the reasoning for that is they are keeping paths open based on which investment path works out. What partnership might work out. So it's hard to know exactly what Scott O'Neill wants to do, but there's no doubt about this. They will need to cut expenses, and they're well aware of that. And they said when I was there, even we're done paying the $300 million. We reported that Bryson's asked for as much as maybe $500 million. And that's not going to happen. They're not going to do that anymore because they can't, but also they knew that I work at The Athletic. Our first few years, we were paying a lot of reporters 30% over because we're trying to make a startup, right? You had to do that in the beginning, and then you don't keep doing that. Like they pay per tournament, like outside of purse, like just operations, what like a major costs, and that's part of like credit where it's due. Their events are actually pretty good, so and that's like one of the things they can point to
because
they
LIV Golf produces it, right? So like
yes,
they're what they would spend on the broadcast would be equivalent to what a major championship would be.
Exactly, it's a great point. Yeah, so it's like I don't want to knock that, but at the same time they have to cut that down. And their hope is cut cost, no more of these crazy contracts, and some of them are leaving, so it's less expense. And private equity most likely comes in to probably to own some share of the league. And the real hope, hope for any optimism in a long-term sense is valuation of these teams. Now, my teammate, like they are pushing a $300 million evaluation number and saying like, hey, we'll sell equity on each of these teams with that evaluation. My teammate Gabby Hersig wrote a pretty badass piece last week that really just like tore down a lot of their optimism in that from different financial people like across the world, and being like, I don't see where that evaluation's coming from, quite frankly, and kind of saying like they don't think that money's coming. I don't want to speculate on that. I don't know, but they believe they're going to sell equity shares in the teams. They're going to have some other kind of investor and then cut costs. And I think the hope is they can survive as some sort of global league that doesn't even try to like inherently compete with the PGA Tours directly anymore, but exists as its own interesting international force.
Like a percentage of these teams, right? How many of these teams are actually profitable?
No, that's the key here. And one, there's also the thing that's hard for us, and I'm not even like saying they're incorrect, but what does profit mean? Because it's like, is that the profit because the Saudi funded like it's like profit outside of probably what the Saudis put in, so it's like because they bought you those players and things like that. So what does profit mean? But yeah, I think like I'd say 4 of them are like they believe have real value. I think the Australian team, I think the South African team, the Aces are really successful apparently with merchandising and whatnot. I think a few of them like they believe have value. LIV sent to us like that they believe, I believe 9 or 10 of the 13 teams are going to be profitable this year. Again, it's just this hard thing of like, what does profit really mean here? Which isn't to say it's wrong. I just don't know if I buy that they're worth $300 million. But at the same time, there is like, I think Australia is a good one to point to for why they have some optimism that they directly partnered with junior golf in Australia, and they have these crazy intriguing events, and TV viewership has come up, and like players join the youth team, and then they're now like part of the Rippers organization and like some like youth system. So it's like that sounds cool on paper, it really does actually, but like I just don't know how realistic a lot of this is.
I think that to me is all the things you're talking about in terms of franchise valuation, and even retracing where we started with this moment where there's 2 very different views of what this league could be, whether it gets merged into the PGA Tour or Team Golf stays, feels like the story of the whole league, right? Now, I'm not going to call it naive decision making, because just to your point about any sort of startup, you have to invest a ton of money in it. You have to kind of lead losses a little bit, but it just feels like, and I wonder if maybe it connects to what PIF's overall either we reach this goal and we become a successful player in golf, or it's not worth it at all. Of like whether if they did take the deal where they kind of merged in there, or if they did try to kind of do something more financially sustainable with these franchise valuations, that maybe this league could have had a more sustainable future. But you're looking at it right now, and to your point about Gabby's reporting, it's just, especially if you don't have the bonuses to pay these guys to stay, if they leave, how are you going to sell against a franchise that, before it was being unsustainably propped up by PIF investments, that like without that, I'm very curious to see what this league actually becomes. Like, where does it live in the competitive structure? Is it like equivalent to PGA Tour Americas, Korn Ferry Tour? Like, I just don't know. I mean, you still have guys under contract, but that to me is my big question mark, is what even is this competition next year?
No, exactly. I think you're absolutely right. And just to like quickly touch on your point, it's like the hard part about evaluations is so much of the product was the money. And that's not like, that's that's what you were flaunting. Like, that's not like you were pushing that. Like, the thing you have here is the largest purses in golf and $100 million in your pocket day one or whatever. And like, that was the product. And by the way, that was the product in an even deeper way, because like being involved with Saudi funding was probably what brought a lot of these investors, or I should say sponsors and things. People wanted, SSG wanted to partner with the Saudis. You know what I mean? Like, people want to be in business with this wealth fund. So like, once that's gone, what is the product? And I think the product, to your question, to get to it, is I think they landed on something with local golf. I don't know if that was always like fully the plan. That's startup thinking, right? But like, you can't ignore the Australia South Africa success. You just can't, or a few others too like that. And I think the PGA Tour, like, I don't know if they have the willingness to go put that resource in and do that, because that there's something there. And I think, you know, one of Gabby's sources suggested, like, what if they become just like, what if this all kind of fails, but it still becomes a like 4-event international series? I don't know. There's a place for it, and I think Scott O'Neill, his big through line he keeps saying is, isn't this good? Like, do you want us to go away? Isn't this good for golf? And I get what he's saying to an extent of like, you don't want to get rid of Better International. Now, I think it's hard because like the DP World Tour still exists. It's almost like the best case for all this, and this is talking out of my behind, so forgive me. Like, I don't want to like pretend I have sourcing here, but like the best case scenario seems like some world where LIV and the DP World Tour coexist in a good way, because you want to tap into like the infrastructure of the DP World Tour, the history of the European Tour. But like, LIV's really good at this, at doing some of these things, and they've tapped into something where people are really rallying behind it. So I do think like some variation of a global league is their hope, but I just don't know if they can get the funding in time.
Man, that's super interesting. And I think LIV's main assets at this point, right, are Bryson DeChambeau and John Rahm. Like, these are their horses. They're the best two players, undoubtedly. Obviously, biggest payroll on LIV Golf Tour with the contracts they have. Bryson, of course, coming up at the end of this year, and then I believe John Rahm is it 2029 when he's up.
It's like always a little unconfirmed, but I believe 29. Yeah.
Which, okay. Now when we start to think about this, you know, Bryson and John Rahm, they left for money, right? In this, it's something that they could not turn down. And of course, they have equity in these teams, being the team captains of the Legion and also the Crushers. And so when I start to think about how will this business model work, I think about these two players who are not going to stay on LIV Golf Tour if the situation doesn't make sense from a dollars and cents standpoint.
minus 160 that something exists in LIV Golf next season.
It's hard to just do one event, man. Like I feel like if they tee up, they got to have something that is definitely, back-ended in all this, where guys are guaranteed, purses throughout, whatever. Because you can't just say, all right, we got somebody to come in for that first event. That just sounds like a mini tour, man. Like I've been through this. I played a mini tour event that I won that I never got paid on. If a third party's coming in and saying, hey, yep, we're here. No, you need some guarantees in this.
For sure. It's like, I think they'll get some source of funding, right? Like they're not going to like literally get nothing. It's just, is it hundreds of billions? Is it billions? I don't know. I think something will exist. I bet something exists next year, but several big names are gone. That is but minus 160 is what I'll put it at. Minus 140. That sounds better. Yeah.
Okay. We already got the juice moving, Charlie.
We got the juice moving. Yeah. I think it's interesting.
People are going to fight. Like they're going to not just,
they're
not going to give up. Yeah.
Well, to your point, I mean, there is a world. The thing that's always made the most sense is the DP World Tour and LIV having some sort of combined.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, it's like, does the DP World Tour have more history and infrastructure to just do what LIV's doing, albeit at a less of an investment? Like you're not going to spend a major budget on a week-to-week basis for a national open, but the DP World Tour could take what they've done and do a version of that works. It's just,
right?
Do they do it in concert with LIV or do they do it on their own?
Like we talk so much about like what's SSG going to do with all this money? It's like, man, like they already kind of subsidized the DP World Tour, right? Like isn't kind of the best thing, like again, I don't have any information on this, but like really put like a decent little chunk of resources into helping the DP World Tour be a big deal. And like it's already because you're already creating
Rollout kind of alluded to that.
So I don't know.
Like at that press conference of the players kind of alluded to that. We're looking at the fall. We're going to try to do some different things there, try to go places internationally. I think that if you really want to, if we're talking about, a business plan that's going to snuff out a competitor, that would make a lot of sense to kind of go in heavy now while they're vulnerable and just say, hey, this is going to be our full swing. Getting guys like Rory going over there. I mean, there should be opportunity there.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, Brody, the only way we can come off of this golf and LIV golf talk, which a ton of politics, and also, by the way, hilarious that your experience in Louisiana politics and knowing how insane that whole landscape is, especially if you kept up at all with the Lane Kiffin saga and LSU hiring Lane Kiffin, and then also how they were involved with LIV Golf's event not happening in June. So as we transition out of this, you were around in the Coach O era at LSU.
Yeah.
Can you give me your favorite Coach O story?
Man, I wish I was prepared for that. Okay, like I think my favorite story is not even an LSU one though. It's one that like has been passed down to me, but I think about it the most. It's Ole Miss era, and it's like, and I'm gonna butcher the telling of this, so I hope one of our listeners who's like another reporter corrects me on this. But it's like he's already kind of on his way out at Ole Miss. Everything's cooked. Back then, he was not like you saw, like you knew him. Like LSU version of him was a very good boss. Like Ole Miss version of him, probably not a great boss. And everyone hated him. And like everything's cooked, and it's raining or something. It's a mess. They're losing the game, and he's trying to talk, and no one's answering him on the headset. Like it's on the sideline. No one's answering it. So eventually, I don't want to do the impression, but eventually, he's just walking up and down the sideline.
You tell me what it is, and I can do it.
Yeah, right. Thank you. He's going up and down the sideline to say like singing. Talking to myself, walking down the sideline, talking to myself. And like, I just think that's the perfect Ogeron story. And eventually, the way the story goes is like a young Hugh Freeze is on that staff. And eventually he's the one who's like, okay, coach, I'll talk to you. Like, here's what we're doing, which is also a great part of this. But I think when I think of Ed Ogeron, like, I really think of that one the most. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's like a little kid just walking down the road.
Yeah,
man.
I can
just like he's in trouble,
it.
he's in timeout, and he's just bebopping around in the rain. That is so good.
All time. I mean, to your point though, I love that like part of why I was so excited to take the golf beat from after like 6 years on LSU was, man, I'm done with all these scandals, all this like double talk and lying. Let's go cover golf. And then now, we're back in
not so fast, my friend.
Double talk and lies. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, what a time, man. This has been awesome.
No, Brody, thanks for taking the time, man. Make sure you go check out Brody's work at The Athletic. Their entire team does an incredible job. Love reading all y'all's articles. Y'all do tremendous work. So we appreciate you taking the time covering LIV Golf today, and of course, a little bit of gumbo along the way.
By the way, I'll end on this. I just remembered the cocktail bar in downtown, the River Room, all-time great.
The
cocktail
River
bar.
Room. Okay.
So I think the three of us need to have some old fashions at the River Room sometime.
There you go. We got to do it in a couple gumbo. Thanks, Brody.
Yep.
We'll see you next week on the Golf Channel. This has been The Smylie Show.
You know, I listen to this podcast. It's really cool. And
all of our LIV fans and subscribers, but make sure you like and subscribe.
It's cool to see what you guys are doing. I know golf fans appreciate it, but we do too, so please keep it up.
For all the good people at YouTube, like and subscribe.
You guys have some good takes, so I'm happy to come on and shoot the...
Betting growth was up about 40% year over year in March, so some of that obviously was the NCAA tournament, but a lot of that is because DraftKings and FanDuel were coming to town and bringing a lot of money with them. It was about $87 million was bet in the month of March, which is not only a March record, but it's a record for Arkansas in general. And it was really interesting to note too, DraftKings and FanDuel were only active for about 12 days.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
There is a pick tonight that Gabe has that, to some degree, I find completely outrageous. Then I looked at it a second longer, and it might be a really smart angle.
I like to test them a little bit.
I like that.
To test them a little bit.
I like that a lot.
Oh, you don't know? You don't know this team name? You should. You're in the sports business.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
When Ruben Bain's name got called, this is the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments of your life. You're going to look back at this tape all the time and watch when you got drafted and had his arm length. I said, are you shitting me? You're supposed to have a highlight here, not a low light. I was like, oh my God, man, that's insane. That was just incredible. And I thought it was so classless.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
You have something that does not warrant tinkering with, but you have the perfect sporting event. And all you're going to do by watering it down with more bad teams, less competitive teams, more blowouts is to ruin something that we love.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.